Hello, this is Father Howard Giles at Jesus the Good Shepherd Anglican Church in Henderson, Nevada, coming to you today to talk about live streaming services or virtual church and why it is that we don't do that at Jesus the Good Shepherd. In the COVID pandemic of 2020, churches were shut down and we struggled to stay open. We struggled to stay open because this was our duty station. This is where the Lord planted us and put us. And the political powers that be did not shut down the marijuana dispensary on one side of us or the gun range on the other side of us. And so leaving open access to guns and drugs while preventing people from receiving the sacrament of Holy Communion was a clearly political move that the church needs to take a stand on. And I don't see how this is not going to happen again because it worked so well in shutting down the churches. And so the issue for us is, why are we even meeting together at all? Why don't we continue to do virtual church? And why is it that we would even ask people to get out of bed and to come in to worship? The first thing is about live streaming. Now, live streaming is a performance. I watch somebody do something, and that is not worship. That's not liturgy. It's not the work of the people. Work is not watching. So to simply watch a performance, to watch people sing, to watch people preach and then go home is not worship. It's not liturgy. That is a performance. Nothing wrong with watching a performance and nothing wrong with watching people preach, but it is not liturgy. It's not worship. And this isn't an attack against the technology. Obviously, we're a big fan of technology at Jesus the Good Shepherd. We use YouTube, we use other social media, we use apps and websites. So we're not opposed, clearly, to new technologies. The other way that some people are worshiping, quote in quotes, I'll put it, is virtually by using things like Google Meet or Zoom. Why don't we do that? That can be really beneficial for a conversation, for a meeting. We use it many times for our own vestry meetings when we need to make decisions and people aren't able to travel to the church. It's a great tool, but again, it's not worship. What's missing there? What is missing is actual connection. We don't connect in the same way virtually that we do in person. And I've heard a lot of people say this is how the kids are doing it, this is how the kids connect, and that is a really serious problem, especially for the church. There is a fantastic rise, I say fantastic meaning a large rise in social phobias and generalized anxiety disorder and all kinds of mental health associated with isolation, social isolation, the exposure to electronic devices, and for the church to use that to say, here's a placebo for actually making a physical connection with somebody is detrimental to people psychologically, spiritually, and their physical health. And there are so many research studies that talk about the difference in, say, the brain and the way that it responds with all kinds of different chemical, hormonal responses, other physiological responses when a person is in the same room and making eye contact versus through a screen. We don't have the same physiological responses. It's a shame that we'd have to go to biology and psychology to tell us that the church is older and wiser than all of these disciplines. If anybody should be talking about the importance of actually being together in physical touch, it should be the church. So we're not getting that eye contact. We're not getting the physiological response. We're not getting to touch one another. And when we greet one another through a hug or through a handshake or a holy kiss at the passing of the peace, there is a real connection that is made. Sports teams know it. Parents know it. We have to touch one another to connect, even if it's just a high five. We have to have some kind of physical contact because we are physical beings. We're not just, images on a screen, and we're not just brains who are connecting virtually. We are real people with physical bodies, and we communicate in that way, which is why in liturgy we stand and we kneel to show that. It's very hard to find somebody that would argue against standing for the national anthem. If they do argue for that, then they're going to say that you should kneel instead as a kind of a political protest. One way or the other, you're using your body. And it's very important that the church know the the value of using our bodies in liturgy and standing and kneeling and sitting to learn. We move and we act and worship through our physical bodies. And when we do that, when we touch one another and we see one another in physical person, we connect with one another, and that connection leads to community. And when we are connected to one another, we're going to call one another when we have a time in need, when we need a trip to the grocery store or the hospital, or we need help in some way in our physical lives. And what virtual church does is it offers a placebo. The person thinks they've been to church, but they really haven't, because they haven't connected and made community, so that when they are in need, they've got nobody that is close to them who can help them and support them. And then that virtual community is going to point them to government services or some other social service. They're not going to have the connection and the support of that local church community, which is part of what it means to be in church. The other important thing about meeting together is that we're having a meal together, and that's what Holy Communion is. It's a family meal. Holy Communion is an essential part of Christian worship. If I was to say to you, hey, let's get together for a dinner, or let's get together for coffee, and you say, oh, that sounds like a great idea. Why don't you set up a tripod and a video, and I'll watch. And I would say, that doesn't sound like coffee to me. That sounds like voyeurism, right? And if you were to say, oh no, let's virtual, I'll have a cup of coffee and you have a cup of coffee, and I'll say, that's not really the point, right? The point is, let's get together and let's share a meal together. And so that's what Holy Communion is. We have a meal together. And there may be some times when a person can't eat because they're fasting, or they've got a health concern, or they're just feeling like they can't emotionally come. We understand that those things happen, right? But that is not the norm. That's not the accepted practice. And there's really no substitute for eating out of the same cup and off of the same plate. That is what families do. And that is what we are doing in the church. We are a family who is at meal. We are a family who is connecting. We are a family who is joining together in the name of Christ. And when we are gathered together in his name, then he is in the midst of us. We dwell with him and he dwells with us. And that is our hope, that you would come and join us, and that we would experience the presence, the real presence of Christ in our midst. Blessings.